The moment I pulled up to my grandmother's house in Oakwood Grove Estates, the Arizona sun beating down like it had a personal grudge, I saw the sign. Brand new, professionally printed, gleaming white with gold letters. Oakwood Grove Estates HOA. Established 2017. My grandmother Margaret Thompson had lived on this street since 1989. She never once mentioned an HOA, not in our Sunday calls, not in her letters, not even in those final hazy months when we talked about what would happen after she was gone. 2 weeks after her funeral, I was staring at a sign claiming some organization had been running her neighborhood for 7 years that she never told me about. I killed the engine of my rental and stepped out, probate papers in hand, the dry heat wrapping around me like a bad hug. The house looked exactly as I remembered. Beige stucco, red tile roof, the little lemon tree she'd planted when I was 10 still struggling in the corner of the yard. Margaret had built this life from nothing. Vietnamese immigrant in 1975, cleaned houses for 15 years, saved every penny, bought this place at 42. It was her proof that the American dream wasn't just a slogan. And now some woman in a blazer was standing in my driveway like she owned the sidewalk. "Can I help you?" she called out, but the tone said she hoped I'd say no. Mid-50s, blonde hair yanked back so tight it looked painful, pearls even in 105-degree heat. She had that posture, shoulders back, chin high, like someone who expected the world to curtsy. "I'm Emily Carter, Margaret Thompson's granddaughter. I'm here to take possession of the house." I held up the folder. She didn't budge. "I'm Barbara Kensington, president of the Oakwood Grove Estates HOA. I'm afraid you can't just waltz in here. There are procedures, dear. Procedures." She said it like it was a holy word. I'd spent 10 years as a forensic accountant auditing companies that didn't want to be audited. I knew the difference between real authority and theater. This was pure performance art. "I have the deed, the will, and the probate court order," I said, keeping my voice flat. "What other procedures are we talking about?" Barbara stepped closer, blocking the path like a mall cop on power trip. "Your grandmother was a valued HOA member. As her heir, you'll need full board approval before you can access the property or make any changes. It's all in the bylaws." She smiled, the kind of smile that doesn't reach the eyes. Bless her heart, she was so grateful when we formed the association. Said it finally gave the neighborhood the structure it deserved. I smiled right back. "I'd love to see those bylaws. And the registration documents. Just so I understand the structure." Her smile flickered for half a second. "Of course. I'll have our secretary email them over. In the meantime, fill out this application." She shoved a clipboard at me, Social Security, bank info, credit check authorization, the works. I took it, pretended to scan, handed it back. "I'll have my attorney review it first." Barbara's jaw tightened. "Until you're approved, I can't allow you inside the community center or access any HOA records. Rules are rules, dear." I nodded politely, walked back to my car, and watched her in the rearview until she disappeared. That night in my hotel room, I opened my laptop and went straight to the Arizona Corporation Commission site. Every real HOA has to register as a nonprofit. No record for Oakwood Grove Estates. I checked Maricopa County Recorder for CC and RS. Zero. Nothing. Barbara Kensington had been collecting dues for an organization that existed only in her head, and on a sign she probably ordered on Etsy. The math hit me like a slap. 28 homes. $175 a month each. Over 7 years. $150,000. Gone. And my grandmother's memory had started slipping right around the time that sign went up. Someone had seen a confused old woman and smelled opportunity. The anger wasn't loud. It was cold. The kind that doesn't burn out. Margaret had spent 50 years clawing her way up. This woman had spent 7 years picking the bones while she was still breathing. Next morning I returned with every document I owned and a voice recorder running silently in my pocket. Arizona's one-party consent state, perfect. Barbara met me at the curb again, but this time she was all concern. "Emily, I'm so glad you came back. We clearly got off on the wrong foot yesterday." She gestured toward the little community center at the end of the street, like it was her living room. Please come in. Let's chat properly. The center was tiny. Folding tables, fake plants, walls covered in framed events I didn't recognize. Barbara settled behind a desk like a queen on her throne and slid a thick folder across. Your grandmother signed our membership agreement in 2017. She was thrilled to bring order to the neighborhood. I looked at the signature. It looked like Margaret's until you knew her handwriting had turned shaky after 2015. This one was too perfect. Traced. Forged. What exactly do the dues cover? I asked. Landscaping, security lighting, common area maintenance, administrative costs, she chirped. $175 a month keeps everything beautiful. I glanced out the window at the park across the street. Brown grass, dead fountain, one broken bench. Beautiful. And the financial records? Board-level access only, dear. I'm the homeowner now, I said quietly. Those fees came out of my grandmother's account. I have a right to see where the money went. Barbara leaned in, voice dripping sympathy. Emily, I understand this is overwhelming. You just lost your grandmother. Toward the end she was confused. She was so relieved we took the burden off her shoulders. We were helping her. Helping her. That was the part that made my blood freeze. She wasn't just stealing money. She was rewriting my grandmother into a helpless old lady who needed saving by a thief. Margaret had survived war, crossed an ocean, raised a family on minimum wage. She didn't need saving. She needed respect. I stood up. I'll be requesting all records in writing. You have 10 business days under Arizona law. Barbara's composure cracked just a hair. You're overcomplicating this. Your grandmother and I had an understanding. She's dead, I said. Whatever understanding you had died with her. As I reached the door she called after me, sweet as poison. Oh, by the way, the current month's dues are due on the 15th. $175 for your property, plus the late fees your grandmother's estate accumulated. I stopped. You're charging my dead grandmother late fees? Rules are rules, dear. I looked at her, really looked, and saw pure certainty. She believed she was entitled. 7 years of telling herself the same story had turned theft into community service. That night the certified letter arrived. Red stamp. Notice of intent to file lien. For $1,200 in unpaid dues, penalties, community reserve assessment. Deadline 14 days or they'd foreclose on my grandmother's house. The document looked terrifying, case numbers, notary stamp, the works. For 30 seconds my stomach dropped. Then I remembered. You can't file a lien for an organization that doesn't exist. I drove straight to the county recorder's office. Clean title for 34 years. No liens, no CC&RS, nothing. The letter was pure theater. Most people would have paid just to make it stop. That's exactly what Barbara had been counting on for 7 years. The gaslighting was starting to work on me. Every interaction forced me to prove things that shouldn't need proving. That I owned the house, that the HOA wasn't real, that my grandmother hadn't willingly handed her life's work to a stranger. After enough repetition, even the truth starts to feel slippery. That's the real evil of this kind of scam. It doesn't just steal your money. Steals your certainty. My phone rang while I was still in the parking lot. Unknown number. A woman's voice, rushed and scared. Is this Emily Carter? Margaret's granddaughter. Yes. I live 3 houses down, Unit 14. I can't talk long. Barbara keeps a black notebook. Everything's in it, every payment, every homeowner, dates, amounts, even cash collections. She doesn't trust computers. I've paid almost $12,000 over the years for landscaping that never happened. I'm tired of pretending this is normal. Where's the notebook? I asked. Her house. Desk drawer in the front office. She's been doing this since your grandmother started forgetting things. Before that she was just another neighbor. Then suddenly she's president and everyone's writing checks. The line went dead. Barbara lived 3 doors down in the house my grandmother had once helped her move into. And according to the probate records, she hadn't paid a single HOA fee in 7 years. She'd exempted herself while collecting from everyone else. The total damage wasn't just the fees, It was the free ride on top of it. 3 days later, every homeowner received the email. Subject line: Urgent security alert. Unauthorized individual. It never named me. Didn't have to. An individual claiming to be the new owner has been approaching residents and soliciting personal information. This person has no legal authority and may be attempting fraud. Do not engage. We are consulting law enforcement. Suddenly, neighbors who had waved at me now crossed the street. One woman yanked her kid inside when I walked past. Another yelled from his porch that I should stop harassing people. The community my grandmother had lived in peacefully for decades now saw me as the threat. I went to the community center that evening, just to stand outside and look through the window. The lock had been changed. Inside, the framed photos of Margaret's life, her arrival in Phoenix, me as a baby on her lap, had all been replaced by HOA announcements and a giant poster that read Barbara Kensington, President. An older man stepped out of the shadows. Late 60s, gray beard, work boots. She took them down last month. Said they were cluttering the professional environment. He shook his head. Margaret would have hated that. He stuck out his hand. Tom Reynolds, 14 years on this street. Your grandma drove me to the hospital when I had my heart attack. Wouldn't let me call an ambulance, said they took too long. We talked until the sun dropped. Tom told me how Barbara had shown up in 2016 complaining about everything. When Margaret's memory started slipping, Barbara helped with paperwork, then suggested forming an HOA to share the burden. Margaret, confused, signed something she didn't understand. Within months, Barbara had declared herself president and started collecting dues. Nobody questioned it because Margaret seemed to go along with it. Tom pressed an envelope into my hands. 7 years of receipts. Something never felt right. Margaret handled everything herself for decades. Why suddenly need a queen? He also mentioned the emergency HOA meeting Saturday. Mandatory. Agenda: new security measures against harassment. Barbara would bring the notebook, she always did. Saturday. 4 days. I spent those 4 days building my case the way I'd built 100 fraud files at work: spreadsheets, timelines, source documents. I hired a real estate attorney named Marcus Hale who specialized in HOA scams. When I laid everything out, he actually laughed. This isn't an HOA violation. This is a felony buffet. We crafted questions designed to make her crack without tipping our hand. When was the HOA registered? Where are the election records? Where are the financial reports required by state law? Each one had only bad answers. Marcus also prepped a letter asserting my legal right as homeowner to attend any meeting on community property. If she tried to bar me, we'd call the cops for trespassing on my own land. The day before the meeting, I drove past the neighborhood one last time. Brown lawns, dead plants, the park looking like a desert. $150,000 in maintenance. And the only thing thriving was Barbara's ego. I watched her silhouette in her front window, probably rehearsing her speech about protecting the community from outsiders. She had no idea she was about to host her own execution. Saturday evening, the community center was packed with folding chairs and nervous homeowners. Barbara stood at the front behind a folding table, navy blazer, pearls, full war paint, the black notebook placed front and center like a trophy. She hadn't seen me yet. She was too busy shuffling papers and projecting queen energy. Marcus handed a copy of my deed and attorney letter to the nearest person. Please pass this to Mrs. Kensington. The paper traveled hand to hand. When it reached her, Barbara scanned it and her smile went brittle. She looked up, spotted me standing at the back with Marcus, and announced to the room, "It seems we have an uninvited guest. Miss Carter has decided to join us despite not being an approved member." She gestured to a chair in the back like she was doing me a favor. "Observe quietly, please." I didn't sit. I walked straight down the center aisle until I was 10 feet from her table. The room went dead silent. "Before we start," I said calmly, "a few quick questions for the record. When was the Oakwood Grove Estates HOA registered with the Arizona Corporation Commission?" Barbara blinked. "This isn't a Q&A, Miss Carter. We have an agenda." Every legitimate HOA must be registered as a nonprofit. When was it registered? Our registration is being updated. Administrative issues. So it's not currently registered? Murmurs rippled through the crowd. I kept going. Where are the CC and RS recorded with the county? Who elected the current board? Where are the annual financial reports required by state law? Each question landed like a hammer. Barbara's hand drifted toward the notebook, then stopped. Her face was turning the color of old milk. Tom Reynolds stood up. I've paid almost $12,000. Never seen a financial report. Never voted for a board. Anyone here ever see one? Heads shook. One woman in the back raised her hand. I asked for receipts once. She said financials were board level only. Barbara clutched the notebook to her chest like a shield. This is exactly the disruption I warned you about. Miss Carter is trying to destroy the community we built. Then show us, I said quietly. You bring that ledger to every meeting. Open it. Show everyone where their money went. Her fingers went white on the leather. The room was so quiet you could hear the air conditioning hum. I don't have to show you anything, she hissed, voice cracking. You're not a member. Marcus stepped forward. Actually, there is no HOA. I'm Marcus Hale, Miss Carter's attorney. State and county records confirm no registration, no CC and RS, no elections. Every dollar you collected for 7 years was taken under false pretenses. That's criminal theft. Chaos. People shouting, chairs scraping. Barbara backed toward the door, still clutching the notebook like it could save her. She made it as far as the parking lot before the police cruiser rolled in. Detective Laura Mendoza from the Financial Crimes Unit stepped out, calm as Sunday morning. Mrs. Kensington, we have some questions about the Oakwood Grove Estates Homeowners Association. Barbara tried one last time. This is harassment. That woman has been terrorizing the neighborhood. Detective Mendoza glanced at the notebook. What's that you're holding, ma'am? Barbara thrust it at her like it was radioactive. Take it. Everything's in order. I've done nothing but serve this community. The detective flipped it open. Her eyebrows rose. Mrs. Kensington, I'm going to need you to come with me. You're not under arrest yet, but I strongly suggest you call a lawyer. Barbara was guided into the cruiser, while 28 homeowners watched the woman who had ruled their lives for 7 years get driven away. 3 months later, she pleaded guilty to theft by deception, fraud, and forgery. 4 years in prison, full restitution, $156,000 to the neighbors, plus my grandmother's back dues. Her house went into foreclosure to pay what it could. I kept Margaret's house. Some people thought I was crazy. Why stay in a place with so much baggage? Because it wasn't about Barbara. It was about the woman who planted that lemon tree and taught me that real community doesn't need rules enforced at gunpoint. I hired a legitimate property management company. No HOA ever. I fixed the park, painted the houses that needed it, and lowered dues to zero. Tom became my unofficial eyes on the street. A week after sentencing, I finally cleaned out my grandmother's desk. In the bottom drawer under old tax returns was an envelope with my name in her shaky handwriting. Inside, a single sheet dated 3 months before she died. My dear Emily, I know something is wrong with Barbara and the association. I see the money disappearing, but my mind won't let me prove it. She uses my confusion. Please look carefully when I'm gone. Protect what I built. I trust you. You were always the smart one. Love, Grandma. She had known. Even at the end, she had known. And she had left the truth where only I would find it. The neighborhood is quiet now. Lawns are green again. Kids play in the park. No more fines for flag colors or grass length. Just people living their lives without a self-appointed queen watching from her throne. So tell me, was I the villain for destroying Barbara's precious community? Or was she the real thief who deserved every year behind bars? Who was really wrong here? Drop your answer in the comments. I read every single one. See you in the next HOA nightmare.